begin? Okay, I'm going to share the screen with the slideshow that I made for this topic tonight. Please let me know if you can see the presentation now. Okay, it's looking good. Perinatal. So the term perinatal is related to everything that is around birth, natal, like birth in that comes from Latin. Natal is nacimiento, nascere, which is giving birth. Navidad or Christmas comes from that Latin root as well. So what would be the objectives for this class tonight? It's important to identify and to learn how to recognize the physical, the physiological, emotional, and spiritual characteristics of the 4 basic perinatal matrices according to Grof's theory. So we're going to check that because these are going to be the patterns and the images that would be related to the traveler's experiences in GIM. Recognize the archetypal symbols and images associated with each of the perinatal matrices. So mythological and archetypal symbology takes a big role here. It's very important to tune our minds into the power, the energy, and the quality of the archetypes here. Since perinatal matrices is a physical event related to physical birth, but at the same time, according to Grof's theory, it seems to be a myth that for healing reasons, the psyche tends to recreate in order to renew itself. So this must be seen as an archetypal pattern, a mythological pattern that has encoded keys for our development. So we're going to recognize those patterns, such as that one that we're looking at the image, like the angels helping people to go through the tunnel of light. So this is religious symbolism, religious pattern and image, but this comes from the experiences of us all in different moments of life, especially in those moments that are like passages of deep transformation and renewal. Also, very important to learn techniques to facilitate the process for travelers experiencing these stages, perinatal experiences in the body method sessions through verbal, musical, and physical interventions that are appropriate for that, to promote and to help them to complete the stages of birth. And also to identify some fundamental concepts to support the growth process of the clients who have undergone perinatal experiences. So I thought that it would be very valuable to look at Helen Bonny's and Stanislav Grof's lives as 2 important events in parallel, because both GIM and holotropic breathwork, they come from the same matrix or the same origin. So looking at their lives in parallel, very quickly, we're going to do this, will help us understand where comes the GIM method comes from and why these 2 techniques are so closely related. The holotropic breathwork that came also as a result of the research with psychedelics in the Maryland Psychiatric Research Center in Baltimore back in the 60s, and the guided imagery and music method by Helen Bonny. So Helen Bonny was born in 1921, a decade of difference with Stan Grof and very different backgrounds. She was from a religious family in Kansas with a musical background and a musical context, and she studied violin at the Oberlin Conservatory. And Stanislav Grof, he was born in Prague in an atheistic family, and he studied medicine and psychiatry at the university in Prague. But despite these differences, they both had a pivotal mystical experience when they were in a more mature age. And this experience was key in revealing them in different means the reality of higher and non-ordinary states of consciousness. And these experiences, the violent experience for Helen and the cosmic journey for Stan Grof when he was starting his research on LSD, these two experiences set them on this groundbreaking career, exploring paths in these realms of healing non-ordinary states of consciousness. So we have here all of these different events. I'm going to send you all this presentation for you to take a closer look to it, because it's a lot of information here and we don't need to go like in all that is here. But as highlights in their lives, we can mention Helen's training, for example, where she decided to study psychotherapy and music therapy after her violin experience when she was a violin player. At the same time, or around that time, Grof was beginning to research on LSD in Prague. So LSD is very important here because that was the stimulus that opened the research and the realization that the psyche had different and vast, huge layers of reality that were sources of energy, of creativity, and of growth. Then Grof went to the United States because he received a 2-year fellowship to work at Johns Hopkins University and Spring Grove Hospital, who was the precursor of the Maryland Psychiatric Research Center. That was in 1967, and they met there. Helen Bonny was hired a couple of years later to choose the music that was going to be used in the LSD sessions. We have other information here, such as the Soviet invasion by then, and Grof refused to go back to Czechoslovakia, and he remained in the United States with this big research, because Maryland Psychiatric Research Center was the one from many centers at that time in the United States that was receiving a lot of funds from the government to do this research. In 1971, Walter Pankey, he was the co-director of the center. He passed, and this was like a very big moment for them, because he and Helen Bonny, they wrote a very important chapter, an essay about music in LSD sessions. And that chapter, that article, you can find that in the book where all of Helen Bonny's writings are compiled. The use of music in LSD psychotherapy is very important. Then when there's a ban of LSD, this is very important, in 1978. So government stops funding for LSD. So they start to make other research using other stimulus to get into non-ordinary states. So Grof moves to Iselin in California and he starts there more research with all kind of therapies, and approximately at the same time, Helen Bonny develops GIM. So they both learned a lot together about the dimensions of the psyche, and of course, this brilliant mind of Grof making his own discovery of the perinatal matrices in 1979 was where he finally introduces this concept in his writing. He influenced Helen Bonny a lot into his vision of the psyche. So now, after all of the development of both techniques, holotropic breath work is widely recognized in the world, and of course GIM as well. But they both share the essence and of the understanding of human nature, because of all of what happened in these years and what they experienced together. In this picture, we can see Albert Hoffman, the discoverer of LSD, pioneering LSD research, at the left. Then we have in the center Walter Pahnke and Helen Bonny at the entrance of the institute, the research center in Maryland, where we don't have a picture of them all with Stan Grof, because he replaced Walter Pahnke after his passing. So also important to mention some of the differences or similarities between the two methods. So of course, they both come from the same source. They both use music, and they both use non-ordinary states of consciousness. That's like the central aspects of both. But there are differences in the use of music. For example, in holotropic breathwork, music is not as important as in GIM. Well, it is important, of course, but there is not such a detailed analysis of the musical qualities of each piece, which is Helen Bonny's expertise. The music in holotropic breathwork is it's a wide range of musical styles, like ethnic, percussion, even electronic music is used nowadays in order to sustain an altered state of consciousness for 3 hours long. So that's a big difference. But mostly because holotropic breathwork is not necessarily a therapeutic approach to be used in a process of subsequent sessions. It's more intended to be like one self-exploratory session now and then that can be part of a self-growth process, but not a therapy such as GIM. So this is why there are these differences. Holotropic breathwork is done in group sessions, sometimes large, like 20 people. And GIM mostly is individual session where his most powerful and effectiveness is found. In holotropic breathwork, we don't have an intention, for example. The psyche goes there wherever the psyche wants to go, like with its own agenda. In GIM, that's an essential part of it because it makes part of the therapeutic process, of the follow-up of the issues, the themes, the intentions are very important. The induction in holotropic breathwork is hyperventilation, essentially. It's very profound, direct, and very powerful. The induction in GIM is more delicate. In that way, we use more like depth breathing, deep breathings, relaxation. During holotropic breathwork sessions, we don't have a dialogue between the guide and the traveler. It's minimal. And in GIM, it's essential. The guide is guiding, not controlling, because has a therapeutic vision of it. So there are differences. They both share physical interventions, especially in moments of release. This is going to be something central as we go further in this class, the physical interventions. The mental integration also important, both in holotropic breathwork and in GIM. But in GIM, we have learned to use the mental integration also, the mandala, also as a means for assessment, therapeutic assessment. And that's a difference from holotropic breathwork. Okay, so let's keep moving more into the perinatal matrices. Okay, so let's have the image of a child and an old man or an old woman, an old person, a baby and a senior, but seen from a symbolic perspective. Okay, so this aspect or these two images of ourselves are highly relevant. Who hasn't imagined like old people or newborn babies in their GIM journeys? I think that's a very common image in sessions. These two can be very common images, and they are highly relevant when working therapeutically around perinatal matrices, because this recreation of internal dynamics serves as a means to be reborn, leaving behind old patterns and recreating a fuller, healthier future. So for Carl Jung synthesized the meaning of the symbol of the child as future. And he thought that the symbol of the old person is wisdom or past, future and past. So why is this relevant? So think of all what we can do with the inner child in GIM a lot. You may have experienced that by yourselves or with your clients, how healing it is to have interaction, acknowledgement with the inner child. Let's say sometimes people encounter a child of about 5, 6 years old, 3 years old, 8 years old, ages like that. But what about the newborn, or even more before that, before being born? That opens up very rich and creative aspect of the psyche to be born again, metaphorically. So let's get back into the theories of archetypes in order to understand this a little bit better. The archetypes are creative sources of psychic energy that lie beyond manifest form. This means that they don't have a representation. They are just psychic energy, but they take form and shape when becoming conscious. In their purest essence, archetypes are formless. They don't have form. They exist in an abstract realm that we access through the collective unconscious. These psychic forces take shape in the form of collective and individual symbols in each person. That means the archetype is not an image, that's the representation of the archetype. So the archetypes is the substance, and the symbol that you can see is the representation in the realm of form, which allows us to create narratives and give meaning to our evolutionary process. So the archetype is the substance, and the image that represents it, it's the container. Okay, so let's keep in mind that, because it would be very relevant with the perinatal matrices. So let's think now about myths. So myths are the big stories that are made up of the archetypes. So the archetypes are placed in this drama that make up the myths. So the myths contain the experience of the archetypes. These are stories that are never literal, but they have profound meaning when we are able to attune ourselves into them. So they represent possibilities, challenges, and purpose in the process towards wholeness. We have the myth of Medusa here, Syrinx, the Phoenix. This is the engulfed cathedral, and many others. So understanding the importance of myths in our psyche and why the psyche, the inner healer, chooses to recreate the traveler into a specific myth, it's because in these myths, the psyche will find a pattern where to evolve, because these myths have an ongoing growing energy for evolution. So this is especially relevant in the context of perinatal matrices, as beyond a physical biological event, there exists a story, a myth within the collective unconscious that speaks of fusion with the cosmos, then disconnection from the cosmos, struggle, death, and rebirth as a transcendent evolutionary pattern expressed in the event of biological birth. So beyond or behind the biological birth, there's a psychic reality that is taking place in order to recreate, to be born again. Okay, so let me see if, how are we doing? Are we doing okay? Okay, please let me know if
Yes.
you have questions. Okay. I would love to see your questions if you have any, and so you can leave them on the chat box, or at any moment you can also ask by opening your, just asking. Okay, good.
I guess I in my work at behavioral hospital, I see a lot of alters, inward parts, something like dissociative identity or multiple personality that kind of comes through. And so we have multiple young um, imaging or uh, maybe personalities, maybe parts within, as well as I've had some that have expressed some older parts, but this is different than that, right? This is just the metaphor of the young and the old and finding encounter with that, or just letting, I mean, I'm just wondering if that has parallel to what we're talking about.
What is it exactly, Joseph, you're asking? Because I didn't get what have you identified in your work?
Um, so we do an exercise based off of Fraser's table that
What is that?
is Fraser's table. Have you heard of this?
No.
Fraser's table is the idea of imaging a boardroom table. You are the CEO of you, and you invite any and all parts of you to be
Mm,
seen in this room. And
mm-hmm,
so it may be young parts that come
mm-hmm.
through,
Oh, got
inner
it.
child, children.
Yeah,
It might be expressions of emotions, my
of
angry self,
course.
my sad self that emerges. And so
Yes.
I engage with that on a weekly basis in a
Mm-hmm.
different way with them as part of this internal
Yeah.
exercise and visualization.
Absolutely. I think that
Yeah.
even in those different exercises, whenever you are able to imagine and spontaneously
Mm-hmm.
shows the image of a young or an older person, they are parts of they are archetypes. So the difference here is the awareness of that, because it will depend on the therapeutic perspective that you are putting into your work. If you are talking more like with dynamics of something behavioral, or in a symbolism that is more related to the daily life, that is going to be your focus. But here we are going to see the same symbols, but from the perspective of the archetypes. Okay, a larger perspective. But yes, I think that definitely archetypes are showing up all the time.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Joseph. Okay, so let's go to identify what are the psychological, emotional, and spiritual implications that this event of birth entails. So we have these 4 basic perinatal matrices. The first one, they have different names, but I chose to bring this because they are clear enough. So the first one is called the amniotic universe. This is the life within the womb before birth contractions begin. So it represents a sense of unity, safety, connection, evoking feelings of boundlessness and bliss. This is a summary of it because, of course, there are a lot of different amniotic universe experiences, and they will depend, of course, into the situations that the mother, the baby, health issues, nutrition issues, emotional situations take place. But in general, this first stage has these characteristics. So then, and this is a long stage because it can last for several months.
Can you expand the image that you can you make it bigger?
Oh, let me see. Sure. I don't know. How is it looking? Okay. How about, no, wait. How about here? Is it large enough or is it too small? Too small.
It's just showing next to you.
Next.
Yeah, now it's smaller.
Oh, I know what you mean. I know what, yeah, because I think I made something here. Yeah, got it. Got it. How about
Yes.
that? Better.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joseph. I didn't notice that was happening. Huh. So it looks like a nebula, something like that, because it has this kind of quality. So all of these images that are related to vast spaces, floating with no weight, weightless floating with connections with the stars, or floating down in the ocean connected with sources of warm water that is clean and nurturing, or being in an island full of beautiful nature and animals, like the paradisium, the paradise is related to this amniotic universe, because there's a connection and a sense of fusion between the ego and the all. There's not a sense of separation. It's like you have a connection, a vital connection, actually very real, from the umbilical, with the mother, and the mother is sensed and perceived as totally loving and providing universe, that it's part of you, taking all of the care that you need. But the cosmic engulfment, that sounds horrible, because if that's exactly what the fetus experiences when this safe universe starts to fall apart. So it is as if you are falling apart with it. The universe starts to trap you. So the sense here and the experience, the central experience here is the sense of being trapped without a way out. Another way of describing this second perinatal matrix is the no way out, without a way. And it's very interesting how Stan Grof relates the different pathologies that as adults we can develop, how they could be related to traumatic experiences in the womb. Something that maybe was too intense. So the sense of hopelessness, which is common in depression, according to Stan Grof's theory, it's related to an incomplete second perinatal matrix. So this is a sense of no escape. There's no way out. Everything has been destroyed. There's a sense of isolation. And then, during the active labor of the birth process, the fetus is pressed down through the birth canal. This matrix is related to the struggle for survival because the fetus sees that, oh, maybe there's a way out, but there's a lot of struggle that is needed. So these stages, they have a very strong charge for survival because the mother, of course, is experiencing that. It's giving birth, but in order to give life, it's a struggle to escape from death. So the limit between life and death is very subtle during birth. And this is something that the psyche captures very, very deeply. And often in deep transformative stages and experiences, the closeness to death means that a big shift is going on. So images related to death, to struggle, to battles are very common in the death rebirth struggle, which is basic perinatal matrix number 3. So it's the moment related to a lot of fighting, a lot of bringing energy out. It has a lot of liberation, but most of the times, paradoxically, like related with energies of aggression, fight, like a drive for rebirth. So it's very transformative. But not all people, not many people, especially nowadays, born like this, because cesarean process is the most common process to receive newborn babies. So they don't have this. So that's another topic. But what Stan Grof has researched is that these people who are born by cesarean, they have certain tendencies, psychologically speaking, but through non-ordinary states, they represent themselves through the 4 ages. I'm going to present a little bit of a case that is like that. This is someone who was born premature, so her mom didn't have the chance to have the contractions. So she only experienced the amniotic universe, and then she was out. So what happens with all of this? Okay, we're going to see how she experienced the 4 matrices. Okay, the last one, death rebirth experience. is the final matrix, and it coincides with the physical birth, representing liberation from the struggles of labor. It's associated with renewal, release, and ecstatic breakthroughs. It's like opening up, often symbolizing spiritual rebirth, resolution, and a new beginning. So these are the experiences, the patterns, and of course they will vary a lot depending on each person. So we're going to go more on the 4 perinatal matrices. This is just one first explanation. And I would like, if you want, to do a mini experience in order to have a sense of what we have just talked. So this mini experience of like a body emotion mapping exercise. So the objective would be to explore physical sensations and emotions and emotional reactions associated with the perinatal matrices. So this is going to take about 5 minutes, no more than that. It's going to be something I'm going to keep it short, but the idea is to go through the 4 of them in order just to have a sense, a feel for that, because embodying these experiences is helpful in order to identify the patterns, the similarities that our travelers will find when doing their own journeys. So if you feel like you can do this, go ahead and take a moment to make yourself comfortable and in a position that you feel okay. Let me make sure the music is coming in. Please let me know if you can hear the music now. Can you hear it? Okay, good. And can you hear my voice? Okay? Okay, good. So take a moment to close your eyes and to focus on your body. Allow yourself to feel your breathing coming in and out through your body. And allow your breathing to take you to have a sense of the emotions that you will be identifying through this little journey. Take a deep breath and allow yourself to settle into a space of calm and openness, letting go of all distractions. And allow yourself to begin this journey by imagining yourself in a vast, boundless space which is filled with warmth and peace. This is your own inner universe. An endless sea of calm, connection. Every sound, every movement is gentle and soft. You feel entirely safe here, embraced by a nurturing presence all around. Allow yourself to sink deeper into this sensation of unity and bliss, knowing You are held and complete without any need or worry. Now, sense a shift in this safe universe. The space begins to close as gentle waves of pressure begin to move around you. Notice some confinement starting to arise. The space becomes narrower. How do you feel? There seems to be no visible way out. Let yourself experience these feelings, knowing that it's a part of the journey, and allow yourself to feel the pressure of this universe changing. The pressure intensifies as you begin to move down a narrow passage. The intensity of this experience awakens powerful energy within you, a deep instinct to survive, to fight, to push forward. You feel the surge of aggression, strength, and the drive to keep moving. Embrace this energy, knowing it is guiding you towards something greater, something closer to transformation. With one final push, you break through, emerging from the narrow passage into a new space. The weight of struggle falls away. You experience an overwhelming release. You feel renewed, liberated, a slight warmth and fresh air surround you. Let yourself take this sensation in as an ecstatic freedom, knowing you have overcome, you have arrived, you are reborn. Breathe in the freshness of this new beginning, feeling alive and open to all that lies ahead and around. Take a moment to let these experiences settle within you, holding them with you, and feel your breathing, your body, and when you're ready, come back, carrying the images, the feelings, the physical sensations. And if you'd like to share anything, I'll be happy to hear what you identified of these 4 stages of this mini journey. Is there anything particular you would like to share? Or if you want to just keep it for yourself, maybe taking some notes. Yes, Carol, go ahead.
I had a very powerful experience in my GIM. It was a level 2, and I was with Carolyn McKinney in North Carolina, and we were doing a week long session, and I experienced that whole process. It felt like I was giving birth, and I was having contractions, and she just kept extending the session and extending the session until that birth happened.
Wow.
Uh-huh.
You were giving birth.
Yes.
Awesome.
Very
That's giving birth to what? May I ask? What were you giving birth to? What?
Whatever was next at that particular time.
Yeah, absolutely.
That was
Thanks for sharing that.
prior to any children.
Prior to any children, was that?
Mhm.
Yeah. So many times people get confused because they dream, oh, I dreamt I was pregnant. But most of the times, that doesn't mean that they're actually pregnant, but something deeper is going on. And the psyche knows that there's a narrative encoded in the birth symbology that can hold and can contain these energies in order to express them and bring them into awareness. Otherwise, they will stay unconscious. That's what Jung says. That's very interesting. Thank you for sharing that, Carol. Okay, good. Let's keep moving forward. So let's go to the amniotic universe once again. So what do you see in these mandalas and in these pictures about what we have just said regarding the characteristics of this stage? Mandalas can be very described depictive of these stages. What do you find in common? What are the patterns here? Excuse me. So there seems to be some patterns with these shapes that have like a fetus shape. So we have this kind of spirals here with the soft, tender colors.
Are you showing us something on the screen? I'm not
Oh,
seeing
I'm
anything.
sorry. Thank you, Joseph. I'm sorry. Oh, I thought you were. You're
Now
there.
we see it.
Oh. Okay, now you can see that. Okay, so I was mentioning the patterns here about the field shapes. It seems like very repetitive. And you can see in your client's mandala, whenever something is coming related to this, something is being recreated. So most of the times the feelings are of safety. For example, this one is very pleasant. There's a lot of containment with unity, harmony, but sometimes there seems to be threats or menaces in the womb. So this fetus is floating around, but there are shapes that are a little bit intrusive. Also, the combinations of colors may speak of this stage perceived not entirely as positive, but a little bit contaminated, and maybe related to imprints that the person has related to the stage of pregnancy, situations, emotional distress. The similarity with with some shapes in the universe is it's very representative of how the pattern is shown in the macrocosmos and the biological micro humanity realities. Colors such as pastels are related to these very, very early stages. Okay, then other different mandalas related to the cosmic engulfment matrix. So this is where the contractions begins, restricting the fetus blood flow and oxygen, so creating a trapped inescapable sensation. So the mechanisms of alarm, they get triggered. There's a lot of stress. Actually, the sensation, as Grof describes, the pressure is felt in the body as, I can't remember how many, but it's huge in terms of weight, the amount of weight that the fetus feels here. So in GIM, we can see that also in mandalas or in experiences. For example, here, the sense of confinement is evident in this mandala. This was a client that was struggling with not being able to give her voice out in a situation that was really suffocating her. So she was like experiencing this, what she needs here. Then the perinatal matrices are giving us a map to guide a person and to understand better where they are emotionally. For this person, a release was needed. In a way, drawing the mandala was a release for her because she was able to see and to represent her state. And later on in the sessions, she was able to express through the movement of her body, through the emotions, and going through the other stages to complete whatever she was. In this story, in this GIM journey, the traveler, she was trapped with her family in, look at this womb shape. It was a house, but it had this shape. But the house was absolutely chaotic and they needed to go out. So the pattern here is the same, but is being represented with different stories. It's varying in the shape, but it's not varying in the essence. Okay, let's look at these representations of the death rebirth struggle, where physiologically there's the active labor of the birth. The fetus is forced down the birth canal, a lot of pressure, and both mother and fetus are life-threatening processes. And Grof has understood how the psyche of the mother is closely intertwined with the psyche of the fetus. So they both can feel each other very intensely. So being born, it's sometimes they get the images and the feelings of the mother. Do you see how persistent the element of fire here is? So fire seems to be a very common element that is shown in these stages. And there are a lot of images, metaphorical images related to passing through fire to be cleaned. So fire is the ultimate cleaner purificator of all elements. Because fire, for example, let's take all the symbology from different spiritual traditions, not only Christianity, but also in Hinduism, the ashes, they have a very powerful symbolism because everything that has gone through ashes has become ashes, has been purified, so has new life, but had to go through the burning, the transformation of fire, such as the phoenix. So images of going through a channel up or a volcano, it seems that it's closely related to this stage of going through the channel. So a lot of heat, a lot of anger, sometimes sexual emotions are related to this. And this is something very interesting, how Grof identifies some sexual pathologies related to these stages. Okay, let's go to the fourth. Finally, the death rebirth experience itself. We have the death rebirth struggle and the death rebirth experience itself. So it's like being born again. So this is the completion of the birth with the fetus emerging from the birth canal and taking its first independent breath, release all the pressures of labor. Can you imagine how it feels to be trapped almost without being able to breathe, and then finding yourself in an open space, being able to breathe, to cry, to yell, to hear. So in GIM sessions, you can see that many, many times, sometimes very in a very evident way, like with very graphic symbology, and sometimes the pattern is there, but more in a more metaphorical sense, and we're going to see a little bit more of that. So allowing and helping our travelers to go through these stages is really, really important to complete the process. So the more difficult part is to go through stage 3 from stage 2 to stage 3, and to be able to stay there, to go in and through. And we're going to see that in a moment when we go to the guiding chart. I would like to introduce Terry here. And when I talked to her about this presentation I was going to give, she was very happy to share her process with me. And she talked with her mother about her birth. And she found like things that were not very, very happy things. But at the moment of the process, she was 30 years old, and her themes by then revolved around being able to honor her inner nature in a world full of difficulties. Being a lesbian in a country where this was very restrictive and belonging to a dogmatic church, needing to bring her work to a large community, healing the wounds of sexual abuse from a family member. So she was struggling to really feel a place for herself in the world, to reconnect with her internal sources of love. In her childhood, she had a very distant father and a weak and unbalanced, highly critical mother, who even tried to drown her when she was a baby, according to her mother's later account. So her birth, Terry's birth, was premature, and it was induced, so she did not experience contractions nor pass through the birth canal in this life, but she did during the process, the GIM process. So this is a summary of some of the sessions. This is from session number 2 and then until session number 11 in the span of 2 years and a half. We're going to talk a little bit more in detail. But if you look at this mandalas, you will start to see images and symbols related to perinatal matrices, such as this one. Also, this one has a lot of heaviness, the weight, the abandonment feeling. This one too, the woman, naked woman with all of this abundant, the freedom here, the unity in herself, like very safe place to be, very intimate place, and then birth itself in a hollow gym session. So let's look more in detail. So in this session, it was session number 3 for her. The intention was to explore the pattern of unhealthy relationships. So the music program that I chose was relationships, and the images, the key images was like she was in a forest surrounded by tall trees with a big hole, muddy looking. So she wanted to go into the hole, and then she went into the giant hole. So all the guiding was about allowing this process of going through this hole that later became a tree where she was going upwards until she was liberated from that very tight and narrow tree. So in a moment, she was going through a very small hole, and the head was feeling squeezed. And this seems to be very, very important, like the squeeze of the head for some reason going through that channel with the head being squeezed gives a very important imprint, not only in terms of the psychological need of struggle to survive, but as I spoke with physician Ricardo Domenico, a GIM fellow, he was showing me studies that show differences from babies who were born going like this with the squeeze of the head, going through the channel because they absorbed a lot of substances that were essential for their immune system. So that was very, very interesting. So it seems like even though Terry didn't have a birth, she was projecting. She didn't have a birth with the full 4 matrices, but she was projecting her inner self, took her into a journey of experiencing the 4 stages. And this, at first, was a question mark for her. She didn't have any insights of this session. She just titled it with a question mark. But then at the end of the process, it made a lot of sense for that. I'm just going to mention something short that she said during this session. She said, "It feels really deep. I see a long lever and I push it off to keep sliding. The music seems to let me slide even further. By now, it's like I'm watching myself from the rim above." Okay, and then she says, "I'm still standing up the rim, but I feel confused." What do you feel you need in this moment? I don't know. I sit down, and then she's absorbed through the tree. She says, "I am in a smaller hole now. I can't really move. It's like my body is growing taller than the trees. I stand up and raise my hands in a straight line, but the hole seems to get smaller around me and I feel squeezed." Stay with that feeling instead of rescuing. It's important to stay with that because the psyche needs to complete that, to feel that. Where do you feel it most in your body? In my head. it's really tight, like it's squeezing my head, but I'm still breathing. And then the music changed, and I said, can you let the music flow into your breath? Into your breath? Yes, my head is free now, like this. I can reach out and pull myself up. My whole body is free, but I still feel exhausted. So she didn't make much of this session. She didn't understood what was this. She was trying to analyze this and to give meaning, but it seemed to be working in a much deeper level, like recreating something that she needed to unblock in this way. And then the process took more, it got more expanding and more healing. In this session number 10, this is a big jump. In the previous session, in session 9, she had found a pair of wings, because it's related to this liberation, to this symbolic giving birth to herself with new wings and being able to fly and to escape from a trapping and oppressive environment. So the wings were representing that. And she felt very positive then in this stage of the process. And she wanted to use the wings. So that was the intention for her at this session. I want to fly with the wings. The music program was Faith, because she had identified that the wings had, of course, a very significant spiritual meaning. So some key images: a white light from the head, viewing herself in a coffin, then leading a troop and preparing for victory, and then a profound connection to others. Don't you see the pattern here? We have the pattern here of the 4 perinatal matrices. And then she got really valuable insights like listening, caring, and knowing I am important too. So the white light from the head, that's where the crown chakra is. And this is, according to Vedic and spiritual yogic traditions, this is the place where the spiritual universe and the physical universe connect here. So also, this is the place where usually babies, not I don't know always, usually babies start and emerge from the world of the womb. So the white light from the head, this initial image represents an expansive bright light emerging from the head. It aligns with the amniotic universe matrix, evoking a sense of boundless energy, a peace, and connection to something larger than oneself. So when the crown chakra is active and open, then there's connection with a vast universe, with the cosmos. Then viewing herself in a coffin, this vision of being in a coffin with a peaceful yet sad atmosphere reflects the cosmic engulfment matrix. She experiences isolation, helplessness, and a sense of entrampment, intensified by the inability to communicate with others, because here it's like she's dead and everyone is mourning her, but she cannot communicate with them. She wants to say to them to be okay, to don't feel sad, but she can't. So it's very intense, that sense of disconnection. Then she see herself leading a troop and preparing for victory. What does that sound like? Death, rebirth, struggle. Taking the leadership role with a sense of responsibility, power. Remember that she was wanting with a lot of drive to put with a lot of professional projects. So she's gaining and recovering her inner strength, like moving forward, like battling with struggle and perseverance, culminating in a vision of victory, teamwork, and mutual support. This is what happened in her session. And then she had the death rebirth experience matrix, where feelings of liberation, renewal, and unity emerged from the intense struggles of birth. So she finds herself, she feels the connection with the community at last, because she feels love for the community, felt deeply in the heart. So I asked her to place her hands on the chest, like enhancing this feeling of the mother that is embodying the connection, the purpose. So this final session was very insightful about her project, her professional projects. So bringing her spiritual wings into the mundane but meaningful world of work. In her last session, session 11, we decided to the hollow gym. For those who are not familiar with this, hollow GIM is a technique that was developed by Carl Busch, who studied and worked very closely with Stan Grof himself. And this is a combination, a hybrid between GIM and holotropic breathwork, with music of about 1 hour of length. We use hyperventilation or other induction techniques. The music has a variety of music, a mixture of music, ethnic music with more percussion at the first, and there are music from movies with more drama. So she wanted to experience this, and the music program was called Dance of Kali, which is related with the with the Vedic tradition of a symbolism of Kali as the goddess of life and death. And she had some key images, like at first wild animals running in Africa, spinning, then contractions, then squeezing. Then during the squeezing, the encouragement from the father, which was very, very important, because it was like bringing this male energy related with her father, with whom she had like this absence and disconnection, but feeling the encouragement from him or from this internal father was very important. And then the coldness, the fresh air, and light on the head again. Her insight was tremendously simple and powerful. Life is precious. Each life is precious. It's life, nor positive or negative. It is the whole experience, a human experience. And that she was saying that for herself mostly. Her life was precious. So here in the mandala, we can see very clearly all this process that we have been talking about from the last hour. From the bottom to the top, the red, it's related to blood, to life, to energy, to heat, to movement. Then look again, the spinning and going through the channel here, and how it opens and it breaks the upper part of the circle, which is related with peak experiences. It can also be seen, of course, as a peak experience here related to the birth. And that's how she called her mandala birth. Please let me know if you have any questions here. I know you're all there. Or I will keep going to the guiding techniques. Okay, so we're going to check what can we do. Okay, so let me know
I
if
just
you
have one quick question was,
Sure.
knowing that she seemed to go, one of the previous clients of yours seemed to have, yeah, kind of an experience in session 3 and then something else in session 10. We're saying that this is not going to necessarily be in order of the sessions as you're working with someone. It just might be they had some kind of perinatal experience, and then they may go through several other sessions before they
Mhm.
proceed in the rebirthing process. Is that kind of an idea
Yes.
or the sense of it?
Yes, it's not linear or sequential. So yeah, she had different sessions. These sessions that I was putting the focus on were the sessions where it was more evident that this was taking place. There were other sessions with other topics that were like around, but yes, as you say, the order may vary. It's not linear, but it can show up like at different moments.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure. In that regard, I have also seen that sometimes a traveler in one session, it was recently with a female traveler, she stayed all the program in the ocean, floating, shapeless, and free with freedom in the ocean. And she just needed that. Her psyche just needed to place herself into a universe, a water universe where she could move freely, because that was her issue, not being able to move freely in her life, like metaphorically. So you can see that from the perspective of perinatal matrices, like, okay, I need to go to the amniotic stage for a while in order to re-experience the goodness of a good womb. So imagination can give you that, and the inner healer, of course. Okay, so how to guide? So we have the guiding chart, which is absolutely encompassed and articulated with this, because as you know, within the LSD research, they identified all of these stages that were gradually building towards a peak experience and then towards a stabilization. And this matches perfectly with the perinatal matrices movement. And subsequently, the music programs matched with this, as you have seen. They have beginnings, they have moments of a lot of struggle, intensification, peak experiences, and renewal and integration and closure. So the guiding chart, it's important to keep that in mind, because the more we can follow the the gradual process of involvement, encouragement, involvement, and then intensification, and using somatic interventions will help the natural movement of the story to develop. So I'm going to be here with the guiding chart in a second. Before that, just to mention a little bit about the importance of physical interventions that, by the way, nowadays, Carol and Sierra, they want to change, they're changing the term for somatic interventions, more take inspired by Peter Levine's somatic experiencing. So this approach, as you know, as GIM practitioners, uses powerful amplification techniques with non-ordinary states to support emotional release and healing, because sometimes we find like metaphoric sensations, like, for example, I'm stuck in the mud, my legs, I cannot move my legs, or I have heartache, these all often surface as emotions that are rising in the body. So it's very important to highlight the importance of how to recognize these blocked emotions that are ready to be expressed. And we know the techniques that may involve physical support, pressure, some movement in order to facilitate this dynamic energy to naturally flow through the body. And of course, carrying psychological energy as well. It's a natural form of healing. So daring or using the physical somatic interventions will help. So just like a brief reminder, the main 3 steps, like first, to encourage the traveler to stay with the experience. Okay, that's really important. Gradually approaching the pain, the ache, or whatever is going on in their bodies, and staying with that, and then allowing them some time to experience that. Then using the music to amplify it. And then, like third step, to facilitate the natural release of the energy. So this method fosters the integration of body, mind, and spirit with preparatory discussions, of course, that are typically held in the sessions, like third session of process. Okay, questions, Carl? Yep.
Could you say more about the preparatory discussion about when you're going to use somatic? Because that's not a normal part of every session. So when to bring that up or to set the ground for that before the session?
Yeah, good question. I don't usually mention that until the third session as a possibility, because the first 2 sessions are sessions where I want to go step by step, because many things are new, like closing your eyes and laying down and imaging and reporting and mandalas. So many things are going on. So I prefer to focus into the development of the therapeutic presence and making the client feel comfortable. But then about the third or fourth session, I mentioned this as a possibility, especially if I have noticed that the person has blocks in their bodies or it's something moving towards that. So I mentioned that. So in the pre-session talk, I introduced that by saying that sometimes when emotions arise, they present in different parts of the body. And I tell them explicitly like that, giving some pressure to those parts of the body sometimes is very helpful for those emotions to release. And I ask directly, how would you feel about that? And I give them a little bit of an example. For example, some pressure in the chest like this, or a gentle touch in the shoulder. I just give them examples. And most of the times they say, yes, no problem for that. So that's how I introduce them. But also in your forms, and that will depend on the informed consent that you use. So something about physical interventions must be said formally into the, we call that the informed consent form. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Good. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. So we have the guiding chart. Do you use this? Do you remember this one from level 2? This really goes with that, with the perinatal matrices, especially when we're going through this intensification, going in and through. This is really, really important. And I know that this is one of the most challenging parts of a session, how to stay actively connected and how to be able to hold the tension to go in and through. It's like a work of active labor as giving birth with you're traveling, helping them to give birth to whatever is blocked. So everything that we are able to do before that is very important because we're setting the stage for a release. So describing, entering into the world within, like giving focus to the experience, engaging the traveler, all of that is really important because it's like gathering energy and preparing them for something deeper. So when they come to this, uncovering things to be intensified, they will have enough involvement with the music. They will be deeply enough in a non-ordinary state. They will be ready to uncover these things and to bring them into an expression. So being able to guide through the music program until we get to this stage with the appropriate music would be like a perfect session. But sometimes music programs, they have variations. And for example, in a mostly back program, we will find ourselves in the Pasacalian fugue going into the sixth stage, for example. The fact here is to be able to recognize the movement of the traveler and to accompany them step by step into going layer by layer, deeper, deeper, deeper. And being able to stay with the tension, to allow them to intensify that using musical interventions such as let the music intensify that feeling. Where do you feel that? I feel it in my arms. Can you bring the music to your arms? Allow yourself to feel that even more. It's like building up and up, and then trying to give expression. Allow yourself to move your body with that. Allow yourself to punch. Allow yourself to give voice to that. So this part is like the active labor of the birth process. And then the release and being able to rest and to receive the blessings. So by fortune, we have a lot of resources coming from Atlantis curriculum, especially from what we have learned from Carol's experience. And she's really, really an expert on that, and I value her work very much. In this picture, there she is, herself, Carol Bush, with someone in a workshop. This is a Holo GIM workshop, and she's explaining the placing the pillow at the back of the traveler. So this is like providing the good warmth for the traveler whenever they put themselves into that position. It feels very good. It brings containment. It brings like, I got your back feeling, like the good mother. So this can happen at different moments after a big struggle, or sometimes at initial moments of the session when the traveler is going into a regression. So every time the traveler puts themselves into this position, go ahead and place the pillow in their back. Then we have other somatic innervations that are more intense, such as, do you remember all this? Pressing down for anxiety, someone who is not able to breathe, that's very much related to the cosmic engulfment matrix. So intensifying that will bring a reaction and a liberation. Most of the times, this intervention brings the liberation. So it's like homeopathy, like we're intensifying the symptom in order to promote a response for that, a natural response. So this is what these somatic interventions are based on. This one opening the chest or moving upwards from the side of the column, like stomach. And then we have others like fighting here with the pillows. And these two, we have our teachers here, Ginger Clarkson and Sierra Stokes with Ginger Clarkson at different moments. So in this one, Ginger is showing how to help a traveler who is having like a birth or a release or an opening to receive something like a liberation experience, to promote that even more, like holding her arms to receive the freshness, the fresh air, or the nurturance of whatever is being positive at that moment. So it's like a transpersonal intervention. I know that you have seen this, but just as a reminder and to connect with the topic of this class. You remember this one? The how is it called? A comfort hold. The comfort hold. This is finally I am in the chest of my mother. So a lot of countertransference can be triggered here, but it feels really, really good. It's really container. So after a big release, after a lot of struggle for someone who has deal with a lot of difficulties, this finally brings a sense of I'm totally with you. So the traveler can lay down on the guide's chest and feels very good. Okay, we are about to end. We have just one more slideshow. Two things that are important during whenever the traveler has undergone perinatal experiences is during the post session, because it's sometimes it's necessary to allow more time for integration to fully occur. So the traveler may need more time in silence or more time to create their mandala or to drink water, to go to the bathroom, or even eat something before being able to connect with the possibility of verbal processing, because they often end like exhausted of all of the labor that takes like giving birth or being born. So many times I've seen that an exhaustive analysis is necessary because the process itself has already happened. And talking too much about that actually could be excessive and will lessen the transformative significance. I'm not saying that it's not possible, of course, to analyze, to talk a little bit, but most of the times these experiences remain at the cellular level with powerful information for renewal. So in the post-session integration, give enough time for the mandala, these non-verbal activities for processing, and make sure that the traveler is well oriented to the here and now before leaving, for which it may be helpful to sometimes walking barefoot, playing percussion instruments, or using other art techniques such as sculpting or something, clay. It will depend on what you feel more necessary. Okay, so about following up, that's very, very important because the changes will start to happen, especially if the experience has been intense. So suggest the traveler to take notes on their dreams or to observe themselves in their physical sensations day by day, and generally bringing light into the new being that is emerging, like what is new in my life, how do I feel like recreating myself, because this can be a very favorable moment in the process to create new things, to start new projects, to make changes in life. But this is important, alert the traveler not to make like hasty decisions that could have like deep consequences in an impulsive way, because sometimes there's like this drive to make like radical changes, but suggest that they remain open to changes and decisions, but from a place of awareness and discernment. Suggest them to take note of any new insights that may arise and to contact you if you wish to share, they wish to share with you your discoveries, or to leave that door open. Okay, and lastly, some foundational references that are important to, if you want to read more, where this comes from. The William Reich was one of the precursors of the psychosomatic experiences and the concept of muscular armor, how the chronic body tensions are manifestations of emotional blockages. Alexander Lowen, of course, in bioenergetics and release of repressed emotions through the body. Peter Levine, somatic experiencing. This is for trauma stored in the body and self-hug and things that can be done online too. Of course, Bessel van der Kolk, and how the integration of three brains is essential in the recovery of trauma. Okay, and some references. This article, this is essential, the Bonny and Pankey, the use of music in LSD sessions. I also recommend reading how the music of Paradox was done, this Paradox program, because Sierra talks about how this music sometimes takes the traveler into cellular memory. And I've seen also interesting images related to cellular growth with the use of the Paradox music program. This article by Mark Ryan, Ginger's husband, is excellent, and I based my time life of Stan Grof and Helen Bonny in his chapter, The Co-Evolution of these two transpersonal therapeutic modalities, of course, Carl Jung books, and Grof. All of his books are recommended for this topic because that's the essence of his work in thousands and thousands of documented sessions. Okay, so this is the end of it. If you have any questions, we can spend a few more minutes. And if not, I can't see anyone right now. There you are. I thought I was by myself. Hey, you were there.
I think it'd be interesting to do another session on the holographic? Because I'm not real familiar with that.
Oh, an experiential session, you mean?
Or
Yeah,
learning more about it.
highly recommended because it really opens like totally different world that of experience. And yeah, I know that in Houston they do regularly holotropic breathwork sessions.
Hmm.
Yeah. Hi, Etta. Good
Thank
to
you.
see you.
This was great. Thank you.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you, Carl. And thank you all for coming. Okay, so